I'm going to include a couple of examples from my previous institution, the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, as well as the work we're doing here at the vet school in Glasgow. On the surface, they're very different institutions, but there are parallels. Staff and students are very professionally oriented within their disciplines, and both subject areas are very focused on applying specialist theory to practical skills at a very high level. And of course, everyone is very busy, so nobody has any time to learn how to do new things that aren't considered a core part of the profession. I always introduce Mahara to new users by saying it does the same things as Facebook. The difference is that unlike in Facebook, you still own the content, and by default everything is private rather than shared with the world, until you choose to let someone see it. Group privacy in Mahara is slightly different. Anything you add to the group pages is shared with the whole group by default, but that can be changed as well. I won't get on to my soapbox about what I really think of Facebook, so I'm just going to move on to some examples of using Mahara Groups. When I started at the Conservatoire, the keyboard department were video recording performances and giving students a CD of their own work to reflect on. Introducing Mahara was a road to Damascus moment. In the first year, the amount of time spent preparing and distributing resources halved, and by the time the second cohort of students was in full swing, the workload was an hour per week instead of a day. This also enabled the videos to be shared with the student peer group who had seen the live performance. What was really exciting was the level of student engagement and the professionalism of their comments. This example on the screen is an above average response, but 17 comments aren't uncommon. And importantly, these aren't one-word comments like nice or cool that so often plague attempts to get students to comment on each other's work, but instead they're thoughtful responses. In one of the other departments that adopted this methodology, students posted their own video performance to Mahara and got feedback from their peers, who would even cite specific literature on technique. The students would then take that on board and post a revised version of the work and invite further comment, so it became an iterative process of improvement. One of the great strengths of using Mahara Groups as a hub for performance footage or skills footage is that the users can reflect on their own performances and those of their contemporaries in a more social and collaborative way than they would simply doing a Dear Diary entry in their personal journal. Reflection is so important in the development of artists that comments made by students in the group about their own work and the performances of others are now a required part of the portfolio submission for those students at the Conservatoire to evidence their own critical thinking. For incoming students at the vet school, we've tried to combine advanced access to online resources with a network of mentor big vets, students on the course with experience of the issues faced by new students, especially those from overseas. We're currently extending this to include a virtual campus tour and videos introducing the facilities. The addition of collections to group pages is probably the best new feature I've seen in the past few years on Mahara. I make extensive use of collections such as these to associate pages with related information and provide a single link. A simple, icon-driven group home page like this one allows users to easily navigate and access information. The only thing we couldn't do was to give prospective students full account access in advance, but by linking the collections via secret URLs, all of the content was accessible. Now, if you're wondering what a secret URL is, it's a feature in Mahara that allows you to send a link to a private page so that someone can then view without logging in. Like everyone else, the vet school are migrating to Moodle 2. We're doing it as part of a rolling curriculum reform project rather than all at once. One of the issues with this is that students across years will need access to the same information regardless of which version of Moodle that they're working in. In the old Moodle that I inherited, there were some great resources such as these histology slides. Unfortunately, the students had to click about 5 times to get to the correct page, drill down into the folders, and then open the interactive images one by one. The same resources were transferred to a group area on Mahara and set up as collections. Now the users can compare the low through to high resolution images of the same content on the screen at the same time and can be taken to the group or individual page from a link on either Moodle. We now have a sidebar block on both of our Moodle sites that takes students to the most important Mahara resources for the school. I thought I would add this into my session because it's extremely useful. I'm not going to get techie on you just now. As I mentioned, we provided links on Moodle to take our students to the relevant pages and groups in Mahara. Normally, when you link to a specific page from Moodle, the users are prompted to log in again when they go to Mahara. With a slight tweak, however, it's possible for users to jump to Mahara and arrive already signed in at the correct page. I'm not going to walk through the process because it's now documented on the online Mahara manual and any of the learning technology people should be able to help you with it. To arrive at a group home page, the address is very slightly different from the one outlined on that page. Basically, the link has group/view in it instead of view/view in the address. Over the past few years, whenever I've been asked about using features of Moodle, Mahara or other technologies, I've created short how-to videos and guides to capture step-by-step how to perform tasks. This allows people to see how it's done and to get on with using the tools without being afraid to ask silly questions. And it frees more of my time to support the users who are really struggling. As an aside, there is no such thing as a silly question. If you don't know how to do something, you don't know how to do it. So please, if you're in any doubt, just ask someone for help. Because if you are struggling to do something, the chances are there will be 100 other people who don't know how to do the same thing. And if one person asks, everyone could find out the answer. The look of Mahara, like Moodle, can be customised. Users can choose to display their pages in any themes enabled by the institution. The Ambrosia theme here is one that I created at the Conservatoire as an alternative for students and staff with dyslexia. I released it back to the community and it's available from the contributed themes page of the Mahara wiki. So any other institution can now download that and install it into their own Mahara. Currently the range of themes that we have available here is limited, but I hope that that will improve. Over this summer, at the vet school we took on 2 student researchers to develop and repurpose resources that are now available on Mahara to students across all years of the veterinary course. From the initial broad categories, we then broke it down into subject-specific subpages, in this case a typical species that we're actually working with. Using Mahara allows us to display content visually, as you've seen, which allows users to quickly choose the relevant video rather than drilling down into folders or looking at an endless list of links of names and hoping that they can pick the right one. This is one of a set of pages that students review, research and complete as a group exercise. All they get at the start of this is a blank form with the headers filled in. These used to be given out as Word documents, but being able to edit and share the content online is proving to be a more effective way of encouraging group collaboration. The templates were added to Mahara by copying and pasting from Word. Simple as that, with minimal tweaking to the layout. In about 30 minutes, the entire series of 10 worksheets were updated to an online format, added to a collection, and a copy of that collection shared with the student group. The collection of pages can then be shared with the next group of students in less than a minute. Students and staff often have trouble getting started creating Mahara pages. At both the conservatoire and the vet school, and in fact in almost every other institution that I've spoken to about this, templates were used to overcome the initial barrier of where do I start. Here is a template demo of our final year student portfolio. You'll see that the template is arranged into a collection of pages, in this case with an overview screen and tabs spanning the key phases of the course. Guidance instructions are given in red, and once the student has completed the task, they just delete the instructions and they're left with their personal copy of the portfolio. Our student portfolio makes considerable use of assets. These are presented as links to documents, videos and case reports, feedback forms and other records of the progress of the student, mapped against the intended learning outcomes of the course. This means that for every learning outcome, each student can choose evidence to submit from the range of assignments and practical work that they have undertaken. Once the student has made a personal copy of this template during a hands-on session, the next step is to email the secret URL for the collection to their assessor as part of the training session. These can then be added as links to each named student on a page in the staff-only group area on Mahara. This allows us to give staff access to portfolios, which are an assessed piece of evidence, and also provides an easy way to give external verifiers access to the content without constantly chasing students to share pages. And of course, if you use secret URLs, the external verifier doesn't need a Mahara account to view the content. Thank you.